Hello and welcome back to OCD Coded. My name's Erin Brown and I'm a therapist and I have OCD and I'm just recording these videos, just one take, no editing, just to help get some of this knowledge out into the world to help people with OCD to turn it into a superpower. So today we are going to be talking about OCD and grief. Really, I think like that's what OCD is kind of struggling with grief, that the idea that the way the world looks in our head is never quite how it looks, in reality or in the external world, that our internal world never seems to quite match the external world. And that can be a big part of neurodivergence and everything too. But I notice it with OCD that that's part of what the obsession is about is something's not right. Something's not right either with me and my internal world, or something's not right with the external world, or just always feeling like we're missing the mark in some kind of way, or grief, or just, OCD has such a thing about time, wasting time or missing out on time or missing opportunities, how FOMO and FOBO were made for OCD and that, that there's a component of time of feeling like time's passing and or like we're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not reaching our potential, the fear and all the fears that are about that. And that's what OCD is. It's a fear. And so the fear that I'm not reaching my potential, the fear I'm wasting time, the fear, you know, I'll never meet the love of my life, or, all these kind of things. And then we obsess about it. And the compulsion is anything we do to reduce that distress of the unknown. And so with grief, I just find grief to be this thing that's one of the hardest. And with my clients, I know like grief just everyone grieves so differently and everyone has a hard time supporting other people in the various forms of grief. And so while some people might need to be alone, while other people need to be around people all the time, or even as just how they're going through it. And I really like talking about, the tasks of grief and the gates of grief. A lot of people talk about the stages of grief, which I always remember them by DABDA, the acronym. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Um, and so that those are the stages of grief, but they're not necessarily linear and they don't necessarily, you don't necessarily go through all of them. It's just kind of more of being aware of what those stages are. And um, Dr. Kubler-Ross, who really started the work on grief. It really started with the grief of getting a diagnosis. And I really think that's part of with OCD too, that like I notice when I tell people they have OCD, in some ways it's a relief to know what it is and know what to do about it. But in other ways, it's this whole process of, but wait, is that what I have? And what does it mean? And how do I know if it's OCD or not? And just all the should I not, am I not that comes after that. And so, really being able to deal with that in a different way, or just so knowing the stages can be helpful. The tasks of grief, the first task is acceptance. The second task is coping with the pain. The third task is about reorganizing your roles or beliefs that might have to change because of the loss. It's remembering that grief is not just death, it's loss. So the loss of an opportunity, the loss of time, all of that is grief. Um, and then the fourth task is like developing a new life that still honors the loss, but developing a new way of living in the world that still honors the loss, but we can't go back to life before the loss kind of thing. And it's really helped me in so many ways with my own OCD to think about those tasks of grief. And it was there was some Netflix show. I think it was like space, but the Swiss Family Robinson, but it was in space. I can't remember what it was called, but either way, one of the things they have these rules for survival, and one of their like first rules is accept the change as quickly as possible. And that really blew my mind at first. I was like, what? How can that help? And, I don't know, like, how is that a survival skill? But then I really realized just how nuts that was, that like, acceptance, like it's the refusal to accept. And how often, like, I want to be like, I just don't accept it, and thinking that's going to change it or prevent it or anything, or that I need to be mad so that I hold other people accountable. And just all this idea of trying to force our feelings or like hold on to our feelings to prove something or justify something, or because we're thinking it'll help in some way, and how that can actually be a part of OCD too. I talked about it before, and the contamination OCD type video. Just talks about you can feel contaminated by feelings, contaminated by grief, contaminated by all those different parts. And so when it comes out with that, it becomes really difficult to decide like, that we don't have to like feel the feeling a certain way. We don't have to feel it completely. Can I just accept my feeling is valid and not have to do anything about it is a huge practice that I try to do for myself and my clients. And then in talking about the gates of grief have been a new one for me. There's a book, I don't know the name. I'll have to put in some of the show notes and kind of things, but talking about the gates of grief, and there are six of them. And, everything we love, we will lose. The parts of us that have not known love, the sorrows of the world, what we expected and did not receive, ancestral grief, and the harms we've done. And the idea that those are the five gates of grief. Like we have to come to terms with grief in all of those ways. And I find that to be such a helpful template. And it kind of gives my OCD something to focus on, but also just being surprised by the relief I would get. Like, again, like if I'm, because OCD, most of it comes down to a fear of death, that is the biggest fear, the biggest loss, the biggest grief, kind of thing is that OCD is so afraid something's going to happen and then we're going to die, like even I'm going to be rejected and then I'm going to die. Or, it's like that, but we don't get as close to that deeper fear because it's so scary. But when we can kind of look at that more, and the way I say it to myself is like, we were never promised we would get out of this alive. We were never promised it would be easy. We were never promised that it would be comfortable. um, and that if I can accept that first, if I can practice acceptance as quickly as possible, that skill alone has served me so well, which of course OCD struggles with, like, well, am I accepting it or surrendering? Like, if I accept it, does that mean I'm okay with what's happening? And it's no, none of that. Just can I accept like the present moment as it is before trying to change it, and that I have to be able to do that. Um, and just again, how freeing that was, that really surprised me. And so when I think about those gates of grief, when I think about if I accept that everything I love I will lose at some point in my life, then it feels like it releases some of that OCD urgency that I have of like, oh my God, I have to do this right now or something bad's going to happen. Like if I accept that those things are going to happen at some point and that me fretting about it and OCDing about it is not going to make it happen less. And it just still continues to surprise me by how accepting it first, it gives me peace and actually makes the thing happen less. It just really still blows my mind that if I accept that everything I love I will lose, that doesn't make me depressed and hopeless, that makes me enjoy the present moment more, that makes me realize like, yes, okay, at some point this will be gone and there's nothing I can do about that. So I can try, of course, to, prevent it if I want to, but that ultimately, or elongate it, prolong it as long as I can, but that ultimately I can. And so can I come back to this present moment? Can I enjoy what's going on right now? Can I try to accept the world and myself as it is before I change it? And that's a big quote from Adler, I believe. Gosh, I'm not doing great with the fact recall today, but I will definitely put some of those in the notes. But it's the quote about like, as soon as I accept myself as I am, then I can change, or I must accept myself as I am before I can change. And it just, that used to really confuse me too with what that all meant, and it just being able to really say, that like acceptance does not mean giving up. I like to say acceptance is not sinking to the bottom of the river and being like I live here now, but it's learning to float on the waves. It's learning to say like, okay, can I accept this thing? And then once I've accepted it, can I start to feel safe in that reality? And that's really getting into some subconscious work and some of the deeper ways about it, but it's just one of those things that really helps free me with it all, and give my OCD some relief that, it can try, and thank you for helping. Thank you for trying to help OCD. But there's a time when I have to also admit and accept these things for myself, and that's what we're trying to do, is sit in that discomfort of the unknown for just a little longer and recognize that I may or may not be able to do anything about that, but that's also part of the point. Like, how do we come back to the present moment? How do I be present here so that I can listen to myself and my intuition so that I can see the world or others more clearly and really respond instead of just react to things? And so, um, yes, I really hope that that helps. And let me know if you have any questions about it or anything else. And we will see you again next week. Talk to you soon. Bye.